Hi guys, in this video we're going to have a go at making the pig from Disney's Moana as a cake. So I've printed out a copy that I can use for guidance, and I've made some Rice Krispie treats, and all it is Rice Krispies and marshmallows mixed together. So I've melted my marshmallows, mixed in the Rice Krispies, give them a few minutes to cool because you don't want them to be red hot when you're handling them. And I'm going to push them together into a ball to make a very rough shape for his head. Tried to pull out a little bit at the front for where the nose is going to go. And I'm just using these plastic cake dowels just to push into the head so that we've got something to insert it into the body with later. Wait while these are set a little bit. You can put them in the fridge to speed up the setting process. And I'm going to cover mine in white chocolate ganache. Try and give it a good cover all the way around. Again, you can put it in the fridge till that hardens. And I've just got a small cake board here. So this is a 6-inch one that I'm using. And I'm going to cover it in a chocolate buttercream. I'm just using chocolate because I've got a chocolate cake. And that on the edge is just a bit of icing that I diluted down and I've caught on the cake. So I'm using 2 6-inch cakes stacked on top of each other. And I've just layered between them with buttercream. And what I'm going to do is now trim from around the top, just to change the shape of the top slightly. I'm just marking out roughly where I want the legs to go. So we'll cut a little V in the front. And another bit just below where I want those legs to go, and just slightly outside of those legs. Now I'm not going to take too much off because I want the cake to be reasonably sturdy, and we're going to cover it now in a layer of chocolate ganache. I'm using a dark chocolate ganache on my chocolate cake, and just go all the way around with this, and then just spend a little bit of time smoothing it over the best you can. And I've taken the leftover cake that I've cut off from the top, and we've mixed it in with some of the buttercream to make like a cake pop mix. And you're going to roll almost giant cake pops that we're going to use for the tops of the legs. So can you see we've rolled almost like an oval shape for each thigh? Push that on, and then we'll stick a bit more chocolate ganache over the top, like so. Now I'm going to spend a little bit longer just neatening up the edges on the ganache. And then we're going to roll out some fondant. So here, you want a kind of off-white colour. So I've added a tiny bit of cream to mine. So roll it. You don't want it so thin that it's going to tear everywhere, but you don't want it really thick either. And we're going to place that over the cake and give it a good push down everywhere. Try and push in between all those gaps that we've sort of cut out of the cake. Just going around gently with your finger. Now it's torn a little bit at the bottom, but that's fine. In the places that it's torn, we'll be able to cover that up later. Just using a modelling tool to kind of push it a little bit deeper into any cracks on the bottom edge. Just working your finger in to soften any lines. And then we're going to trim around the bottom, taking off all the excess fondant. And if you're wondering why it looks a little bit sticky, I did add a tiny bit of water under the fondant to help that stick to the cake. And you can see where it's stuck to my yellow board. Start by marking out the pig's feet. So we're going to put a little line up first, along that edge. And then we're going to put a small little slit. So I'm just using the modelling tool in the front of each one. I'll just keep trimming around. And then once you've done that, we can add a little fur effect, because this is a bit hairy. And I'm just using my modelling tool to just run through with the hair. So I've started on the chest, I'm going to do the legs. And can you see at the top of each of the little pig's trotters, we've put hair as well. And you can do this all the way around. I've done it slightly longer on his chest than I have on the rest of the body. And now we need the feet. So I'm rolling an oval shape in the leftover fondant. And we're going to stick this to the bottom of the thigh, and this will become the foot. So we need to mark in the foot now. Again, I'm just using my modelling tool. That's a bit big, so I'm going to cut some off. And we're going to stick this to the bottom of the foot, and we're going to draw in his fur. And of course, his feet will look a bit different when they're finished. So we'll do the same with the other one. And the second foot, I've kind of tilted it on its side a little bit. And we're just going to mark the end of his little foot in there. And we'll paint these up shortly. Just going to put 2 little dents in here and place 2 tiny bits of fondant into those gaps that we've made. And I've put one just on the side of the other foot as well. And now we're ready to insert the head. Now just be gentle when you do insert the head. So I'm just going to build the head up a little bit. Now it's in place, it looks a little bit small in comparison to the body. Although you see I end up going massive. Now I'm going to take a little bit off the bottom of his snout because I think I've done that slightly too big. So I'm just going to cut that out. I shall eat that bit later. I'm just using my fondant to widen the face where his cheeks are going to be. And you can use modelling chocolate for this. Modelling chocolate works really well. I've just got the fondant to hand, so that's why I've used that. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more white chocolate ganache over there to smooth out the edges. Now I've rolled my fondant reasonably thick for the head. This is just because my head's a little bit on the small side, so it's just going to give him a bit more size by going thicker. So I'm going to push in deeper around the nose, pushing in especially deep under the nose, under the cheeks, and we're going to create a slight line sort of running up the centre of his nose, just creating a little bit of a dint. Then I'm going to trim the fondant all the way around the edges, spend a bit of time working on that seam, trying to rub the seam out. I'm going to try and push it to a point at the top of his head. And again, we're going to now work on getting the fur in place. And we're also going to push in some nostrils, just using the blunter end of the modelling tool. And now for some eye holes. It just really gives me a rough idea of where I'm going to sit the eyes. And I'll add a bit more fur now to the rest of his face. Don't put any on the nose itself. Now I've got a small cake card, it's not very big, and I've pushed some holes in that are the same size as my plastic dowels, because my plastic dowels are going to run through this. Now because I've made the head a little bit bigger, it's now a little bit heavier than it was earlier, so we want to try and give it a little bit more support. Now I've put a bit of white chocolate ganache on there to stick that onto my card, and you'll also see I've added some extra cake dowels. So the two small holes is where my dowels ran earlier, the white dowels that we're going to push in again, and the two larger ones are just bubble straws that we've put in place just to give it a bit more support. We're going to put a bit of white chocolate ganache on that and then insert the head into the holes that you'd originally put in. And now that his head's in place, we can work now on making the feet look a bit more foot-like. And I'm just using some black edible rainbow dusts here. Just try and get a little bit darker in the centre and around the edges, anywhere that would be shadowed, and then you can lighten it up a little bit. So I've got a white, it's a little bit sparkly is my white edible dust that I've got. So that's going to go anywhere that I want to look slightly highlighted. And you're going to do that on all his trotters. And then I'm just going to go over it lightly. So I've mixed the black with a little bit more white and a tiny bit of a brown luster dust. And we're going to put that anywhere again that would be slightly shadowed. And now we're going to paint on his little pig patches. Again, we've got a little bit of black with just a tiny bit of white in, because we don't want it too harsh. And we're going to put these on around the body. And then we'll go up to the head. And again, we'll just add this same colour anywhere that's shaded. So pay particular attention under the nose and under the smile. And then in the centre of the nostrils. And obviously you can spend a bit of time working on this. And then he's got a patch around one of his eyes, so we'll try and brush that on. Can you see it's just a dry brush that I'm using for this? Another patch on the top of his head. We'll try and add a bit of brown into that. And then we're going to go slightly darker, if we can, for eyebrows. And all the dusts and tools and things that I've used in the video, I will link in the description box below, so that you know where you can get hold of everything. And now onto the nose, we've got a pink. And I'm starting at the bottom, working my way up to the top. Just go thicker with it or more heavy-handed anywhere that you want to be darker. Just keep layering it on until you're happy with the depth of the colour that you've got on there. And now for the eyes, we just want some little balls of white. Don't go too big with these, and we're just going to push these in place where we've put those little eye sockets. Do the same for both. Then we want to give him some tiny little eyelids. So again, just use the fondant that you were using on the head and the body. Just try and neaten that up. And the one where his eye patch is just going to need darkening a little bit in colour, so I'll brush a bit of colour onto that. And then you're going to create the same shape again, but this time in black, and these are going to be the eyelashes. So just run this just in front of the eyelid that you've put on. If you want them to look more eyelash-like, just use the knife to put some little dints in so it looks like individual hairs. Do that on both. Then we're going to add the centres of the eyes. I've got a chestnut brown mixed in with some fondant, and I've just used a plunger cutter to cut out a couple of circles. Just put a tiny bit of water in the centre of each one. And then we're going to cut a smaller circle of black. Just push that into the centre of the brown circle. And excuse the fact that my fingernails are full of icing and food colour. And I'm just going to darken the very edge with that chestnut brown. And I'm just painting straight from my little pot of food colour with a thin brush. And we'll put him a little highlight of white in each eye, just with a small white ball. Just pressing in the top corner of each eye, like that. Now he's ready for his ears. So we're rolling out the fondant for the ear, keeping it slightly thicker where the ear is going to come into contact with the head. And I'm going to cut one side, and I'm going to keep placing it against the head to work out the size of the triangle that I need to cut for his ear. And we're going to fold over part of the ear just at the front like that. Now it might take a little bit of playing around to get the right size and shape for the ear. Once you have got it right, use your first ear to cut around so you get the same shape for the second ear. Now if your fondant's a little bit too soft, then add a little bit of Tylose powder into it to just firm that up a bit. And I'm going to add some little hairlines or fur marks on the ears. And I'm also going to add some more pink luster dust just into the centre of each ear, and a tiny bit of black on the outside. Now just stick a bit of water or edible glue on the underside of the ear, and we'll try and push this now to the head. If your ears are too big, they will struggle to stick. So I've tried not to go too big, although they're still reasonably big. Just give them a good push in place against the head itself. Push this one down a bit more. So can you see I'm kind of pushing that against the head? Now I've iced a cake drum. Just make sure it's plenty big enough for your cake. I think I've got about a 12-inch or 13-inch drum. I've put a little bit of my melted chocolate ganache on the board, and I'm going to slide him carefully onto the board. Now he's left a slight mark where the trotters have touched, so we'll touch that up in a little bit. Just a small rolled piece for the tail. Just give that a push against the body, and then we're going to do a teardrop with some little lines through for the end of the tail. And I'm going to dust this up again in the edible food colours and place this on the end of the tail. And I'm just going to push this with some more hairlines onto the board itself. So there he is, finished. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button and leave me a comment below. You can see more of my tutorials by clicking on the images on screen now. If you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button to stay up to date with my future tutorials. There are also links in the description box below where you can find me on Facebook, Instagram and more.